Hello, everyone, and welcome to another wonderful Monday Night Magic with your favorite epigenetic geeks, my dear friend Ken Close and myself, Lori Falk. We are thrilled to be here with you this evening to follow up on one of the most important aspects of meditation. Last month, we talked about Source, the Dr. Joe Dispenza documentary that debuted a while ago. And we talked about all the wonderful scientific studies that have been done on meditation. And one of the main things that meditation does for us is it brings us into the present moment. So, why is that important? Well, being in the present moment is really the only place there is to be. All we have is right now. It means we're not ruminating on the past. We're not worrying about the future. We're just centered right here and right now. And the fact is that everything that is in the past was a present moment, and everything that will be in the future will be a present moment. So, really learning how to master being right here, right now is of utmost importance. Mm-hmm. So I read a quote earlier today that said, the present moment is the only thing where there is no time. It is the point between past and future. It is always there. And it is the only point we can access in time. Everything that happens in the present moment. Everything that ever happened and will ever happen can only happen in the present moment. It's impossible for anything to exist outside of it. So we thought that would be a fabulous, fabulous topic to unpack tonight. What do you say, Ken?
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly because, the benefits, and we're going to talk about this. I think some of the most important things to understand about topics that we unpack here are that there's benefits to them, right? There's biological, psychological, spiritual, emotional benefits to them. And if we're looking at improving our lives in any fashion at all, I don't care how much you want the needle to move, we have to probably learn something new, practice something different, and allow a surrendering of something old, right? I mean, if we just look at some simple, basic things, as an engineer, I'm always looking at things from principle-based concepts. If we can apply a principle, or if we understand a principle, we can probably apply it in several places in our lives, right? It's normally not just singular. And what Lori and I talk about a lot here when it comes to epigenetics is that it's never singular because there's always multiple ways in which it's influencing you as a you from those different levels I talked about. So if we're going to unpack the present moment, what I'd really love for you guys to understand is to see, well, what's the significance there? And how do you know when you're there and when you're not? Right? I think it's important. Sometimes we get so caught up in who we are, and we forget that there are processes within us that we assign the meaning of them as being who we are, but they're really just a set of redundant instructions, habits, and behaviors that we memorize so well that we look at them as, this is who I am, right? And it's not really true. It's essentially who we've become, right? And there's variations of that because, again, Lori and I, we're two different people. We might talk about and be your favorite epigenetic geeks. We might just love that content and that arena, but realistically, we're still two very different beings. And the way that we got to this place that we're at is completely different journeys. So we may have common views on technology and philosophy and these understandings, but yet the way that they are applied, the way they've influenced our bodies, and the way that we share them with the world are different. So how do we know when we're in the present moment? I mean, if you guys, if I would say just throw some stuff in the chat, you guys, if you can. Do we have a chat open
We do.
somewhere? Yeah. So we do have a chat in there. And so throw some things in there and just say, how do you know when you're being present? And I'll tell you something, there's a great way to find out, because you know when someone's present with you, right? How many of you guys know exactly when someone is present with you? You know when they're not, for sure. You can tell, can't you? So this is a good indicator. If you use what you know in viewing others as to how maybe they are viewing you, you now have a little bit of principle, don't you? Like pretty easy. We use our own brilliance, our own genius, our own capabilities, and we can kind of turn that around, turn the tables. So we're being present when there's no inner dialogue around what you did yesterday or 5 minutes ago. It's not really about this, the inner dialogue. You know what I'm talking about, right? The little chatter inside your mind. Well, if you don't know what I'm talking about, that's that words that's saying, I don't know what he's talking about. There's no chatter in my mind. That's the one I'm talking about. Makes sense? Okay. So there's this inner chatter, inner dialogue, and it's super busy, to the tune of 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day, right? That's just neuroscience says 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. And literally over 85% of those are thoughts from yesterday. So if they're thoughts from yesterday, are you being present? No, not really, right? And then if we have content or worry about what we might do tomorrow, or if we are going to pay the bills, or any of the content around dreading going to a meeting, we're worrying about tomorrow. We're not really in this moment. We're either in some dialogue about the past or some concern about the future, and we're not in the present moment. So if we're in either one of those locations, we can probably pick up all that content and place it on tomorrow and be in the same spot, right? We haven't moved or advanced or healed or grown at all. So this is the significance of being in the present moment, is that we want to grow. I mean, how many of y'all want to maybe evolve beyond something that you no longer like, right? Or doesn't serve you in this moment? I'm not saying all of your past needs to be forgotten or gotten rid of, but maybe there's something that just no longer serves you because you're ready for something new. So does that make sense? If we're looking at trying to be in the present moment, we can't be thinking about the past, and we're not really trying to anticipate the future. And the body knows when you're present with it. And so does the divine intelligence. When we're trying to manifest something in our lives, we're trying to draw in new experiences and energy. It's very important that we figure out this present moment idea and concept, because just as you know when someone's being present with you or not, so does the divine intelligence know when you're being present with it or not. We have practices such as meditation and prayer to become present, but how many of you guys that are in a meditation and you're thinking about yesterday, right? You're supposed to be present in a meditation. You're going, how long is this going to last? Or my butt's sore. I just can't get through this. It's like, okay, we're really not getting where we should be. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily a bad thing. It's just not serving you 100%. So getting beyond these things that are plaguing our minds. Anything you want to expand on that, Lori?
Yeah, the other place that this shows up is when you're out, not just meditating, but Maybe I do walking meditations because I'll be out in the woods and I just really want to get into, I'm in nature and I want to get into this high vibrational space. I want to leave the past behind, the office behind. I don't want to think about what I have to do when I get back. And yet I am. And so I have this little routine that I do with myself. And I start this mantra right here, right now, right here, right now, right here, right now. And I say it over and over and over again for like, sometimes 10, 15 minutes. And then the most magical things start to happen. I start to see orbs in the trees. I start to see shimmering columns of different colored lights. I literally see angels and fairies in that light form. And then I know I am 100% in the present moment. I'm not worried. I'm relaxed. I'm raising my vibrational frequency. And any problems I left behind at the office or at home, when I get back there, are going to be that much easier to fix.
100%.
That's just a little hack that I'll share with you guys tonight. Give it a try. It really is effective.
See, some of those small little chants or mantras or anything that helps to, when you're physically engaged in something, when you're speaking words with your mouth and there's sound coming out, it does a couple of things. First of all, it starts to shut down a little bit of your hearing, right? I mean, it's really hard to speak and listen at the same time, right? Because what happens when we start speaking, especially, here's a prime example. If you were to just scream, just let out the loudest blood-curdling scream you can possibly do right now, right? Your outer world would be like devastated. I mean, the ears would be pierced. They'd probably fall apart. However, you can handle it. Why? Because the moment you open your mouth and start to scream, you start to shut down the audible inputs, right? So you don't hear it nearly as loud as the rest of the world. So that should tell us something. It should tell us something that when we're talking, we can't be hearing, right? So it's the same when it comes to the mind. When you're speaking words like a mantra, you're starting to down-regulate this internal brain chatter. So our complete awareness, right? What we're aware of, everything right now, if you guys just sat back in your chair and just took a peripheral snapshot of everything you can see, everything you smell, everything you taste, everything you feel, all of that content, depth and color and texture and all that kind of stuff, everything you're aware of in your conscious mind is about 2,000 bits of information, about 2,000. Okay. Seems like a lot. It's quite a bit if we're looking at, bits of information, but the subconscious, your reticular activating system, is aware of 400 billion bits of information. Okay. So quite a difference between those two awareness states, conscious versus subconscious, right? So conscious awareness, 2,000 bits, subconscious, reticular activating system, 400 billion. Big differences. So what happens when you're in this conscious state? It's again, like you see on the screen, 5% of you is this conscious mind, right? The thinking brain. 95% is this subconscious. These are programs running behind the scenes. A lot of this has to do with our hardwired behaviors, right? The conditioned responses. Now, I'm not saying this is wrong. Some of you guys drive a car, yes? So believe me, your conditioned responses, your subconscious mind and subconscious brain, those reflexes are really fast, and those are necessary when it comes to maneuvering this car. And it's a great tool. Where they don't serve us is where they are this constant programmer or habitual behavior, or even attitudes around worthiness, that or I should say lack of worthiness, right? Those are the same. They're the same as your reflexes for driving a car. Because when someone comes and you have an exterior stimulus, like when you're driving the car, right? You're looking out the windshield and a red light pops up in front of you, right? There's natural processes that happen in your body. You apply a certain pressure to the brake. You start to maybe sit back a little bit. You change the tension on your arms, but you're not sitting there consciously thinking, I'm going to apply 7.2 newtons of pressure to the brake pedal with my left foot. I'm going, you're not actually going through that content, right? It's an automatic response. Similar to when someone comes up, maybe somebody didn't call you that you expected to call, and suddenly your internal worthiness behavior or attitude starts to engage. Like, I am not worthy of someone's response. I'm not important. I'm all the things about that. It's the same kind of space in the brain that houses your autonomic reflexes with driving, the same as an autonomic reflex to a stimulus outside, emotional responses, the internal dialogue. This is all conditioned stuff. That's at 95% of these automated systems. Associative memories, right? When you were driving the car, when you first learned, you had to hit the brakes at a certain pressure because not too hard, not too light, because the instructor would kind of give you a hard time if you jerked the car around, right? Or whoever you were in the car with. All right. So same thing here. These associative memories are about someone's perception of us, right? These are all built-in mechanisms. And the only time that they can pop up is when there is a reflection to the past. What's a memory? What's a memory? It's not yet something you've performed, right? Now I'm talking about in the contemporary model. There's another model in which we build memories of the future, right? Which is how we start to reprogram this model we're talking about. And we'll get there. But these programmed responses, they're already built in, their perceptions, beliefs, and these conditioned, it's a conditioned mind. 95% of that is this subconscious mind. And there's a veil between the conscious and the subconscious. There's this thin layer. Well, sometimes it's really thick, by the way. Depending on the person, it could be, we could be what we would call a very thick veil of transition. So to transition from that 5% down to that 95% where that autonomic system works is where we start to change the brainwave frequencies. Okay. When we're in that 5% of the conscious mind, the thinking brain, the analytical brain, we're in the beta brainwave state. Okay. Maybe you guys have heard this before, but it's a very specific measurable frequency of the brain's activity. That frequency is basically, if you're looking at beta, low beta starts around 13 hertz. High beta, highly reactive beta is about 50 hertz, right? So there's a range between 13 to 50 hertz, which is a frequency. We all know what frequency is. So there's a brainwave frequency. And that says we're in this analytical mind. All right. So when we want to get beyond that veil, get out of the analytical mind and get to the present moment, there's a little bit of a process. And becoming present means that we have to start lowering or slowing that brainwave frequency. Great way to do that is some breathing exercises. Again, as Lori mentioned, having a mantra, right? Having this mantra. And here's another way, another hack that I like to use, because the alpha state is the next state. So we go from beta brainwave frequencies to alpha brainwave frequencies. And alpha is between 13 to 8. So remember, beta is that 13 hertz threshold. We start to go a little slower than that. Now we get between 13 and about 8 hertz. So how do you know you're there? I want to give you guys some practical things to use anytime, anywhere, any day. Our alpha state and all the way down into dream state works in pictures. It's the imagination, right? It starts to bridge the gap with a movie, right? With pictures. And so how many of you ever been daydreaming, right? You're just daydreaming, your mind is off somewhere, you know. And the cool thing about that is that daydream all of a sudden can very quickly and easily turn into sleep, right? You can like nod off, right? Just all of a sudden, like your head's bobbing. That's because the body is surrendering to a new chemistry, right? When we're in the beta is our system of being alert and awake. This is the neurotransmitters that are serotonin, right? This is awake state. And it has a lot of contribution to our day because we don't want to be falling asleep all the time. But what happens if serotonin is still present when it's bedtime, right? And you're ready for sleep. So this practice is synergistic with being able to help you sleep as opposed to taking some kind of a sleep aid in terms of a drug. I'm always trying to be as holistic as possible and give those and offer those possibilities. So to move from serotonin to melatonin, melatonin is the neurotransmitter or the chemistry for sleep, right? To down-regulate thought. It requires us to move from beta into alpha. And that, again, like I said, the daydream state, the imagination state, essentially the kind of the dreamy state is what starts to help to promote melatonin, change your frequency. So how do you know when you're there? Well, again, number one, start to fantasize. Just make, I say make stuff up. I use a different word, but I'm always about making stuff up. And a great thing to make up, especially if we're trying to change some aspect of our lives, is who are you on the other side of your struggle? This is a great movie to start to produce. Be the greatest producer of who are you on the other side of your struggle. It doesn't matter what it is that you're currently struggling with. You know, you want to make more money, you want a different relationship, you want a new house, you want anything you want differently than this present moment. So you start making stuff up. You start thinking about, well, how do you dress? Right? I like I said, I'm getting ready to go to Mexico. Well, guess what? I'm gonna dress the part right now. I'm not there yet, not physically, but emotionally, energetically, in a daydream, I can be there right now. And so on the other side of your struggle, how do you dress? On the other side of your struggle, how do you speak? Who do you talk to? Who are your friends, right? Where do you go? What are your associations? It's very, very important to start to disassociate ourselves from the energy of the past, right? And start to build this memory of the future right now in this present moment. Do you guys realize that wherever you are right now physically, you have an attached energy field to all the pieces around you? Your chair, your desk, your flower pot, your pictures on your wall, your room, the people, all of that. There's an energetic connection to all that. It helps to keep us anchored in a familiar environment that may not be serving us when we're trying to shift or change something. And this is where this making stuff up, this creating these pictures, this, as Lori says here in the chat, giving permission to daydream, giving yourself,
I
right?
literally, that's what I say to my clients, because, you know, most of them haven't daydreamed since they were in grade school.
Wow.
And I tell them, if you don't know which way you want to go, this is especially effective if you're at a choice point and you don't know which way to go. Play it out in your head. Nobody needs to know, especially if I've got someone coming to me with relationship issues. They're in a relationship, there's someone else, and they just don't know what to do. They have these strong feelings. And, certainly my job is not to tell them what to do. It's to help them figure out what they should do. So I say, play it out in your mind. You don't have to have the affair to figure out if it's going to work. Have it in your head. It's easy, it's free, nobody knows, nobody gets hurt. It's just, play it out, really play it out in your mind. And they
Yeah.
do
Giving
it.
yourself permission to fantasize.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know if any of you have some kind of a preconceived notion about what fantasizing is, because sometimes it gets kind of bad press. But the truth of that is that a fantasy is just your imagination at work, right? If thought is to the brain as emotion is to the body, then fantasy is your imagination at work. Okay. So if you want a stronger imagination muscle, then you have to start using it. As Lori said, giving yourselves permission to daydream, right? It's the same thing. You don't have to call it fantasizing. Call it a daydream if you wish. Call it whatever it is that you don't resist. That's the most important thing. If we're resisting something, it's not really taking hold. Your body is precognitive, folks. It knows when you, as the consciousness, are resisting something. Believe me, it knows better than you do. It starts to build a feeling, a memorized feeling from the past. And so it's really important that we don't try to fool the body and allow yourself to be completely elaborate in your daydream. So, okay, so we're daydreaming. We're creating a model of who we are on the other side of our struggle. This is just a model. It's just a fun little practice. It's a fantasy. It's a daydream. But the more elaborate you are about this model, the better that the imprints in your brain start to become rewired. In our brain, there are default neural networks. Okay. Default neural networks. These are concepts, attitudes. These are personality traits. Again, all the beliefs and perceptions, they're all in there in a default neural network. And these are bundles of neurons that are just, all they are is just super efficient at running a circuit. When I say a circuit, I'm just talking about like you plug your lamp into the wall and turn the switch on and the light bulb comes on. That's a circuit. Your brain does exactly the same thing. All it needs is a stimulus, like turning the switch on, right? So like your lamp, as long as it's plugged into the wall, it has potential energy. You turn the switch on, that's the stimulus for the action, AKA the light. Same thing in our lives. Everything you're perceiving, remember that 2,000 bits of information? Okay, that's what you're seeing from the conscious mind. From the subconscious mind, there's a whole lot more. And these are such things like, let's just say that you smell chocolate. All right. When I just said that, can you smell chocolate? Right. You can, the brain starts to build a model around that. This is a familiar understanding that brings it to the present moment and allows you to experience it. The body already knows. So it's no different than if someone stimulates a feeling of unworthiness, same thing. Okay. So it's important that we have what I like to call a fire escape plan. In other words, how do you want to feel? Right? This is the model of building our fantasy. How do I want to feel? Who do I want to be? How do I want to dress? How do I want to speak? You build that little fantasy, that little model, and the better you get at that, when someone comes up and you or the outside world offers you some interference, some trigger, right? To be aware there's a trigger going on. That's the first step of the awareness, right? The second piece is to, instead of getting on the old past bandwagon, we get on to the new understanding of who we want to be because we've built a new neural bundling, a new default neural network. The better we get at it, we can build a way better default neural network of something that hasn't even happened yet versus something we've built for our entire lifetime. Right? You want to expand on that, Lori?
Yeah, because the problem is, I just pull this up again. Okay, we're looking at this and we're seeing 5% conscious mind, 95% subconscious mind. And what does it say across the bottom? Programs and habits. Programs and habits. So 90 to 95% of the time, we are reacting based upon those subconscious programs. Oh my, okay. Those subconscious programs, let me share another graphic with you. This one is more colorful. You'll like this. The artist in me likes this one better. Okay, so now this is brainwave development. Up until about between 6 and 12, you're only operating in theta brainwave, which is the same brainwave as the subconscious. So look at this, how up until 12 years old, this stuff is getting programmed in, and that dear theta subconscious is running the show. So let's just call a spade a spade. Nobody here's even 20. Nobody here's probably 30. I don't even know if we've got any 40-year-olds on this call. We may when the recording comes out. But the fact of the matter is, we have been in these programs for decades. Decades. So when something happens, it's so easy to get triggered into that reactive subconscious, and that throws you totally out of the present moment. Totally. So now what are we going to do?
Well, yeah. What are we going to do now?
Well, I came up with a list. What are we going to do now? We are going to take this little beautiful list that I prepared for you. Actually, I use it with all my clients. I'm just sharing it with you guys tonight. It's called Connecting Questions. Everybody's got a microwave. Nobody should be using their microwave for anything other than a bulletin board. So take this and put it on your microwave. And when you get triggered, walk in the kitchen and look at the list, or put it on your phone. Take a picture and put it on your phone. Pull it up. You're going to, if you want to do this, if you want to develop this muscle of staying in the present moment, it's going to take practice. It's not going to just happen. It's too easy when somebody says something or something occurs to go into this disconnecting question pattern of what's wrong, whose fault is it, why bother, how can I stay in control? That none of that's going to find a solution. But if you can get yourself into these connecting questions, what's my intent in this moment? What's right with me? What wants to be born? What are my choices in this situation? Is that the truth? I mean, these are really good questions to ask. Where am I feeling some inspired action? And what's working? Something is always working, even in the midst of it. What else is possible? How does it get any better than this? What feels like a baby step I can take to move this forward? I mean, none of these questions are going to be applicable in every situation, but this list has enough questions on it that it's going to lead you away from the reactive pattern into another way of thinking. I was sitting watching a manifestation workshop on Mind Valley Academy a month or two ago, and I got a text from a client who had canceled a 6-month contract because they were having financial difficulties. Well, that kind of was going to cause a little, glitch in my budgeting. And the old me, who hadn't practiced and practiced and practiced to stay in the present moment, would have been like, oh, what am I going to do? I'd have gotten nervous. I'd have been in fear. Instead, I said, well, that happened. I wonder what's going to happen next that's going to show up. That'll be even more magnificent. And because I stayed in that more high level positive energy, within about a week, someone showed up out of thin air, recommended by someone who I didn't even know, who booked a year-long coaching contract. Now, I assure you, if I had gone all wonky about the 6-month contract going away, I wouldn't have been in a vibrational frequency to attract that higher level contract. So this isn't easy, you guys. And we're really going to be impressing to you the importance of working on it, doing whatever little hacks that you can. I was telling Con earlier in the green room, when What the Bleep Do We Know came out and The Secret, I used to literally, because I was working out in my home anyway, I'd turn on the DVDs in my living room and I'd put them on repeat and I'd let them go all day long. Because then when I walked out of my office to go to the bathroom or to go outside or to get something to eat or a glass of water, I'm hearing something positive. I don't have to sit and watch it over and over again, but I walk through that room and I'm going to get a snippet of something positive. All these things that we can do to just reprogram, put new thoughts in place, right?
100%. Remember what I said earlier? We have associative energy with everything around us. And so as Lori is creating a home, creating whatever, she's building associative memories. And this goes into a default neural network. And if you just change one aspect of this environment, if your environment right now, if you were just to look around and see your environment and rearrange one small part of it, just rearrange the things on your desk, anything. Take a picture of the wall, move it to the other spot, whatever. When you move some aspect of a fixed environment, it changes your body's response to it, even in the smallest degree. I often tell everyone that I work with, like when you go to the store, like you drive to the store, you drive to work, or you go to a friend's house, on your return, make it a different route. Make it a different route, right? Just drive a different way each time you go to the redundant spaces you go to, because I'm sure you go to the same store all the time, right? Most of the time, there's people who have these redundant habits. I'm not saying that's the wrong thing. Remember, that's in the subconscious programming. It's down there. But if you want to enter into that operating system, you've got to change it up, because those associative memories are just hardwired neural networks. And it is your thought patterns, your software, that builds that hardware. Okay, so the moment you have a new thought, it has to reorganize the hardware. The brain is super efficient. It has a finite amount of synaptic material and connections. So it's constantly growing and rebuilding, but it's reorganizing using, it's taking away what we would call synaptic pruning, old thought patterns. It prunes away a synaptic connection, right? And then literally there's cool videos you can find online where it shows this synaptic, these two neurons coming together and linking. That's a thought in real time. So when we're trying to unwire something, change behaviors, perceptions, personality, attitudes, whatever, we have to unwire, literally unwire, called synaptic pruning, and then rewire it into new configurations. Now, the only way to do that is to do something different, right? This is when I get folks ask me, well, how do I change? Do something different. Okay, that seems easy, but it doesn't. I'm not talking about huge grande steps. I'm talking about what I just said. Drive a different way one time to the store than you did the last time, or different way on the way back than you did on the way there. Because often the autonomic system is driving us to the store. We get to the store and we're like, oh yeah, what was I here for? So whatever it was, you got to the store, or maybe you didn't even intend to go to the store, but you go to the store so much and you were supposed to be going to pick up your friend, right? And you wind up at the store like, why am I here? These things are autonomic programming. It's not that you're losing your mind, right? It's just that you're working on redundant circuits because your conscious mind is busy on some fear, some chaotic experience, some worry, some unknown that you're trying to work with. And the body just did what it normally does. It just drove the car to the store. So we need to really do something that is probably the fundamental basis to change. And that is to work on our awareness muscle, right? If we said, okay, if somebody come up and said, Ken, Lori, how do I change? Okay, well, step one, let's just start being aware. Let's just start being aware. Well, aware of what? Aware of your thoughts. And what are your thoughts right now? If you guys were sitting here thinking inside, there's a thought that just popped through your head, write it down. Write it down. What was it? What were you thinking? And it could be as small as, what did he just say? Right? That's a thought, right? Just write some things down, start to become aware. And I wish that, well, actually, let's just create them. How about that? There should be more awareness fitness gyms out there where you can go and work that muscle, right? We just start building more awareness fitness gyms where you go out there and you work out your awareness. It's well known how to go out and build a bicep or work on your quads or whatever, right? There's a lot of data out there. We're starting to build more and more about how to work our awareness. And this is what Lori and I are talking about right now. We want you guys to start building your awareness. And that's done by seeking the present moment. So number one, start building this awareness, being aware of what? Your thoughts, your surroundings, everything that's going on. And then reel it in, because as the moment you start looking around this discovery mechanism, especially if you have some gratitude for it, as opposed to a redundant circuit of, I hate where I live, or I got nothing, or my furniture sucks, or whatever it is, those things need to fall away and start to build up an internal fire escape plan of gratitude. You've probably, if you guys are Dr. Joe fans, you will have heard the quote, gratitude is the ultimate state of receivership. Right? You ever heard that? And I saw another quote in here in the chat around, what was it?
Nobody, no thing, nowhere, and no time.
Yep. No body, you're not a body. No thing, you're not a thing. Nowhere, you're not in a place, and at no time. And so this is another great aspect of building this present moment awareness, right? To start finding that. And I love this question too, I saw in here about, and Rita's saying, well, how to keep the micromanaging from the daydream. I know none of you guys here, but you may know somebody who tries to control everything, right? It's always trying to make sure that it's going exactly my way. And it's not you guys, but you might know somebody out there that's like that, right? And this is important to allow a certain bandwidth for the unknown. If we're looking at manifestations, we've got to believe in the fact that the divine intelligence is part of the equation, and the divine intelligence has a plan, and it may not look exactly like your plan, but if you're trying to control everything to be in your plan, there's going to be no room for the divine intelligence to intervene. So we've got to allow space for the unknown to come in and be part of the equation. And the way to do that is this present moment, allowing the present moment to just elongate as far as you can get it. I spend at least an hour now. Well, I'll take that back. lately it's had to shrink a little bit to about 40 minutes, but I try to spend an hour creating my day in the morning, just creating my day. I start to see myself on the other side of this day and all the cool things that I drew in. I'm not trying to manage every phone call or worry about every appointment. I just want to create, how do I want to feel through the day? I want to feel gratitude. I want to feel appreciation. I want to feel abundance. I want to feel love. I want to feel peace. I want to feel curiosity, right? This is building a fire escape. And when we do that in the first part of our day, it's going to start to set the blueprint within this biology, because the body already knows how to feel gratitude, doesn't it? Right? Like you saw the chart Lori put up there. After about the age of 12, we start to build, we've already built in a lot of the things around our core beliefs, but around the age of 35 is where we've built all the variations of emotional responses. Oh my goodness, right? Anybody over 35 here? Probably not a lot of you, but maybe a few of you are over 35 and you'll know what I'm talking about. We have built an emotional response to everything, right? This is that controller within us. And how do you know that's true? Well, just drum up an emotion. Do you know how to feel anger? Probably, right? Do you know how to feel love? Probably. We could probably go down a whole laundry list of emotions and you will already know how to do it. This is what I mean. There's already programmed responses. These are default neural networks in the mind. The only thing that varies between all the ones that you guys know and all the ones that I know, we know the same ones, by the way. The only thing that varies in the expression of them is the trigger, right? It's just a different trigger.
Right. And therein lies the key. You're making this list of all the thoughts you're having. You're staying more conscious. You're now aware more of what your triggers are. So guess what? You can take your Healy coaching module and you can write an intention to reverse that so that that is no longer triggering you. So write the exact opposite as your intention, do the analysis, and then run that program. And don't be afraid of it. Really and truly, don't be afraid of it. You can run it for, I start everybody out at a half hour. Then if that works, I up them to an hour. If that works, I up them to 2 hours. And eventually I have them running it overnight. I don't think that's necessarily wise unless you're working with a coach, because it's going to bring stuff up and you're going to have other emotional triggers that will come along. But the point is, this thing works, you guys.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of frequency devices on the market, but none of them have anything close to that coaching module, unless you want to spend, I don't know, $25,000 to $40,000.
Exactly. You know, we're working on trying to manage. I don't like that word manage, but we're working on trying to become more aware of thoughts and such like this. If we allow these thoughts to always be true, and I don't know, my thoughts sometimes aren't friendly, not kind to me. But if we allow them all to be true, then we wind up being a certain version of ourselves. And I want you guys to write this down. You're much greater than you're willing to admit. Go ahead and write it down. You can say, I am much greater than I am willing to admit. Right? Just write it down. I am much greater than I'm willing to admit. And this is what's required to go ahead and become greater. One thing. You need to surrender what you think you are. Surrender what you think you are. I'm telling you, my thoughts are not always friendly. So if I go and believe what I think I am, I'm probably not going to be the greatest version of myself. Right? So if you could write that process out and rehearse some of the things about that. Your thoughts are having some content. Your thoughts are having some brilliant aspects of who you are, right? Believe me, your thoughts are going to be brilliant because they know you, and so they know how to get to you. But you gotta make sure you're willing to admit that you're greater than your thoughts. All right. And see how we can build that out. So what are we looking at in these steps? We're looking at steps to change certain things right here. Go ahead, Lori, talk about that.
Well, if you want to change your reality, having the same thoughts will only lead to the same choices and the same actions and behaviors and the same experiences and the same feelings. And it's like a gerbil wheel, hamster wheel, right? So it's imperative to remember that at any moment in time, you are at a choice point. You're at a choice point. So try thinking, as Ken said, some new thoughts. Those new thoughts will lead to new choices, which will lead to new behaviors, which will lead to new experiences and new feelings. And in turn, we would hope a better, not just a new state of being, but a better state of being. Because you are no longer reacting based upon those subconscious old programs. You are acting consciously and moving into what you want versus saying the same old, same old, same old. See, it's just always that way. It always happens that way. No, it always happens that way because you're not taking charge. Because, as Ken said, you are not realizing your greatness. You are so much greater than you think you are, and so much more powerful.
So the brainwave frequencies we talked about real quick, I want to make sure that we understand the differences. That beta brainwave state, that's where right now your brain is probably in beta right now because you're listening, you're learning, it's new, you're trying to understand, be aware, all of those things. That's normal. Okay. This is it, and there's variations of beta. We've got the low beta, the mid beta, and the high beta. The high beta is this is where you're scared. All right. High beta brainwaves. You can tell. I'm going to give you some things to understand so you can kind of tell where you are. Okay. So if you're ever scared or you're stressed about something, you're worried, and you're physically experiencing that worry, that stress, that fear, you're in a high beta. And that's that above 22 hertz. So 22 to 50 hertz. That's high beta. That's completely analytical. Okay. You're unsure. I mean, when I say unsure, I mean, you're like, don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. And you're afraid. Okay. That's high beta. Mid beta is where you're more attentive and focused, but you kind of relax. You're not, it doesn't trigger worry or fear. You're focused, like right now, you're focused and you're attentive, right? So you're probably somewhere around mid beta. That's 16 to 22 hertz. You're focused. Now, maybe some of you guys are out there doing multiple things and you're not focused on what I said. And if I would just say, okay, everybody tell me what I just said. And you're like, oh crap, I don't know what you just said. Right? Okay, you were probably not in mid beta. You might have been off there in alpha, right? Daydreaming, having a good time, whatever. But when you're focused and attentive, that is mid beta. And when you are relaxed and familiar and also interested, so you're relaxed, you're in a familiar setting, you're interested in what's going on, you're having a great conversation with a friend, right? You're really paying attention to them. Okay, so that's like low level beta. All right. So that is like between 13 and 15 hertz. That's how you know where you are. Now, none of that's alpha. Alpha is where we start getting into the subconscious programming. It's still fun, right? To have a great conversation with a friend, you're attentive, you're present, you're there. That's great. and the body is still comfortable, but where we get the highest degree of healing is when we move the body completely over into the parasympathetic state. This is the rest and digest. This is where alpha comes in. You can get there in low beta, right? If you're relaxed and awake, you're not so much analyzing. You're having a conversation. It's hard to have a conversation with a friend though, and be in that attentive state and relaxed and awake, right? Because you will miss a few words probably that they're saying, I promise. But the alpha state, that's where we're somewhere between 8 and 13 hertz. That's where we're starting to fantasize. That's where we're starting to see more pictures, right? The analytical brain is pretty much down regulated. We're not analyzing, we're just allowing, right? It's like this daydream. So practice daydreaming, folks. If you want to get good at it, and if you want to know when you're there, you got to practice, right? It's no different than practicing to dribble a basketball. You don't know how to do it until you're there physically doing it. So I encourage you, I invite you to carve out, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes out of your day to daydream. Now, when you first get started, you may find your brain going, yeah, but I got an appointment in 25 minutes. And it's okay. I only said 10 to 15. Okay. You're going to find these analytics start to pop up, and that's okay. Be aware of these, and start to move your brainwave frequencies into lower and lower states. This requires a couple things. Deep, full breaths. Okay. When you inhale fully, filling your lungs all the way up, pausing for just a moment, and then allowing the breath to release in a relaxed state. You're not forcing it out. Relaxing the body as it goes out and repeating that process as you're starting to see pictures and things like that. This moves you right into alpha very quickly, because if you're focused on your breath and you're breathing in that deep form in and out, your mind has been held hostage by the present moment. Oh, guess what? I'm present. Right? And so now you're starting to be in that healing state. You're starting to move into alpha. You're starting to relax and release the programs that are running you. I also invite you guys to move things around a bit. Change something up. Change something up. I mean, in the smallest degree, but move something around, go a different path. When we sit in what we feel like a sedentary lifestyle, we get so comfortable that the body becomes this behavior of uncomfortableness. So get up. I don't care what it takes. Move something around in your house. Right? Go a different path. How do you know it's the same path over and over? Well, there might be a mark in the carpet, right? We got this wear pattern going on, right? Or this shape to your recliner that looks about like your butt. So I'm just saying, moving some things around, shifting some things up, that's where you start. And then the more you do, the better you move. You start to move yourself forward. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. So we have a question. Is there a Healy program to support going into theta?
Yes. The the heart chakra program. Anytime that we energize the heart is a very distinct frequency pattern. And when we create coherence in the heart, it requires a specific feedback loop between the brain. Okay. So the moment the brain is in stress response, the heart responds. But if you focus the other way around on focusing on your heart and allowing the beat, just feeling it, appreciating it, finding gratitude, right? It starts to send information through the vagus nerve into the brain and starts to shift the brainwave frequencies. So the chakra program for heart is a great one.
And coherence, I would think, right?
Coherence, bed rest is another one on the sleep program page because it moves you into the parasympathetic state. In order to be in the parasympathetic, you can't be in the analytical mind. I'm just saying, when we look at things logically, right? As an engineer, I look at things in certain ways like that. So if I want to reverse engineer something and I can't get my brain to cooperate, I'm going to go to the heart because it will partner with me way before my brain will. I promise you, your heart wants to partner with you. It wants to open. It wants to love you. It wants to express your soul's purpose. Your heart wants that, right? So go ahead and partner with your heart. And any of those programs within the Healy will help you do that. Okay.
And let me just leave you guys with this one thought. If you're in a little bit of angst and you're thinking about the past and you're worrying about the future, ask yourself this question. What would love do? That'll shift everything. What would love do?
100%. And I've spent a lot of time with the Dr. Joe community. And one of the questions that he asks of the community all the time, or actually one of the statements he places to the community all the time, is there's always more love. There's always more love. More love to give, more love to receive. There's always more. So it requires us to believe that, especially if we're in say, an environment where we don't see it, right? I know there's a lot of folks that can be isolated and alone and may feel certain limitations about themselves. But believe me, there's always more love, and the divine intelligence has built your body to receive it. It's a perfect antenna to receive more love. We, as this conscious mind, need to say, I believe that. That's the only thing standing in the way, is one's belief. Is you say, I believe there's more love, and allow the body, feel your heart. It's sitting there day and night while you're awake or asleep, whether you're on vacation or at home, working away to support you, to honor you, to love you into health. We have to go to work to throw it out of balance, out of coherence. So I say, let's partner with this heart and stop throwing it out of balance, right? And find the small things we can do in every present moment to just sit in that space of the heart and breathe through it. See, I love what Jody says, always more love.
Always more love. Even the puppies show up when you start thinking about love.
If you guys have, by the way, the Soul Cycle program page on your Healy, there's one in there that I highly recommend. It's called Acceptance. Okay. A lot of times, we may see something physically or understand something intellectually, but we're not accepting it from the soul, from the heart, right? All these aspects of some condition we're allowing, but yet it's not transpiring within our body, within our lives. And that's because there's a dissonance between all of that and our acceptance of it. To accept that there's more love is different than saying that there's more love, right? To accept that you are loved, honored, cherished, and needed is different than someone saying so. So the program Acceptance is one of those things that opens that channel, both in the mind and in the body. So just one that I wanted to put out there.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, my dear friend, I know you have somewhere very important to be this evening. So I want to send you off to go celebrate your daughter's birthday. And the rest of you, we will see you again on June 10th. Same time, same channel.
Hey, that's the day before my birthday. Woo-hoo.
Yes, we get to celebrate you next month.
Hey, I love it.
All right. Thank you everyone so much for being with us here this evening, and just stay present and ask yourself, what would love do? It's really that simple. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Good
Thanks,
night
everybody.
and thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you, everybody. Big love.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much. Sweet dreams, everyone.